Jai Mystical Pranamams and Parivat Jai Satisfi Maharaj Mandre Sri Bhaktivinoda Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Sri Radha Radha Krishna Viraj Shri Dhoni Kai Jai Glory Glory. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9, Text 20. Yo Vidyayanu Pidashati Vritya Nidram Uvaha Jatari Kritalokayatra Antajari Kasipurus Pashanukulam Mimo Mimarini Janasya Sukam Vivrinvan Yo Vidyayanu Pahato Pidashata Ritya Nidram Uvaha Jatari Kritalokayatra Antajari Jasipo Spashanukulam Vimo Mimarini Janasya Sukam Vivrinvan Yo Vidyayanu Pahato Pitashata Vitya Nidram Uvaha Jatari Kritalokayatra Antajani Dashipo Spashanukulam Mimo Nija Malini Janasya Sukam Vivrinvan Ya 1. Avidyaya influenced by nations. Unupahata without being affected. Api in spite of. Dasha Ada 5. Vidya interaction. Nidram sleep. Uvaha accepted. Jatari within the abdomen. Krita doing so. Lokayatra maintenance of the different entities. Anatajali within the water of devastation. Ahi Kashipu on the snake bed. Spasha Anukulam happy for the touch. Bhima Umi violent waves. Marini chain of. Janasya of the intelligent person. Sukam happiness. Vivrinvan showing. Translation. My Lord, you accept the pleasure of sleeping in the water of devastation, where there are violent waves, and you enjoy pleasure on the bed of snakes, showing the happiness of your sleep to intelligent persons. At that time, all the universal planets are stationed within your abdomen. Quote by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Persons who cannot think of anything beyond the limit of their own power are like frogs in a well. You cannot imagine the length and breadth of the Pacific Ocean. Such people take it as legendary when they hear that the Supreme Lord is lying on his bed within the great ocean of the universe. They are surprised that one can lie down within water and sleep very happily. But a little intelligence can mitigate this foolish astonishment. There are many living entities within the bed of the ocean who also enjoy the material body, the activities of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. If such insignificant living entities can enjoy life within the water, why can't the Supreme Lord, who is all-powerful, sleep on the cool body of a serpent and enjoy the turmoil of violent ocean waves? The distinction of the Lord is that his activities are all transcendental and he is able to do anything and everything without being deterred by limitations of time and space. He can enjoy his transcendental happiness regardless of material considerations. Yes. Om Agyantamarandasya Janandana Salakaya Chakshvindalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Yes, so it's talking here about the inconceivable, amazingly mystical activities of the Supreme Lord, which people cannot even begin to understand or believe, or even when they hear about it, they think it's all just some kind of fairy tale. But as Prabhupada mentions here, those with a little intelligence who are devotees of the Lord, they can actually understand this, how the Lord, he can do anything. He's completely independent. It's a very interesting topic, this topic of intelligence. You know, there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita that says, one who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control, and fixes his consciousness upon me, Krishna says, is known as a man of steady intelligence. So Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita that one who has no connection with the Supreme Lord can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, nor a peaceful mind, without which there's no possibility of peace. And without peace, how can there be any happiness? Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita recommends we have to learn to discipline our intelligence, to control the mind, which in turn controls the senses. Then we should fix our consciousness on him by following the 9 processes of bhakti, which begins with hearing and chanting. So that to discipline the intelligence, we have to spiritualize the intelligence, which comes from hearing spiritual topics, hearing the instructions from the spiritual master, following the process of bhakti. So one who has succeeded in this, disciplining the intelligence, controlling the mind, fixing the mind on Krishna, one who has succeeded in this is known as a person of steady intelligence. Intelligence is an interesting thing. What actually is intelligence? Or how do you get it? Or why is it that some people seem more intelligent than others? Intelligence is such a vital gift, isn't it? In all species of life, our Creator, Krishna, has given us our intelligence, without which no one could possibly survive. Some people who, due to some heavy karma, have kind of lost their intelligence. They can't even do anything. They have to be fed, they have to be bathed, they can't even function hardly. Even to do the most simple thing, even just to lift this case, requires some intelligence. So we see that in all species of life, animals, birds, aquatics, insects, reptiles. Somehow or other, Krishna has given them all their little different types of intelligence. So they know how to collect their food, how to defend themselves, how to build their little shelters, how to enjoy their senses. It's interesting. How to eat, sleep, defend, mate. The question is, where does this special intelligence come from? And where does our intelligence come from? Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the intelligence of the intelligent. So what does this mean? When we look into this Vedic philosophy, we begin to realize there's actually a lot more going on in this universe that I didn't know about. Such an incredible depth of knowledge and information. Some people are amazed, when they meet a Hare Krishna on the street, or they meet a devotee in some situation, and they may ask some questions, and they realize that actually the devotees have got an answer for everything. It's amazing, because generally speaking, and I can speak for myself, before I was a devotee, there was so much confusion, surrounding, this world, what is this? What is this world? Why? It doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a lot of crazy things going on, in this world. The happiness and distress, people being born, people are dying. People are trying to find happiness in this way and that way. And so it's, when we become devotees, when we meet the devotees, we realize, wow, this knowledge actually tells us about everything, not just about creation, about who we are. We can stop pretending to be what we're not, to be what we really are, which is devotees of Krishna. It's a very liberating experience. So the Vedic literature, they explain that how in the heart there's two souls. There's the individual atomic soul, which is us, the self, our own self. There's also an expansion of the Supreme Lord called the Paramatma, or sometimes we call it the Super Soul. So it's this expansion of the Supreme Lord situated, who enters into our heart at the time of creation and remains there. It's Krishna. He remains there as our eternal friend and companion, witnessing all our activities, our desires, inspiring us in different ways. You may have some desire to want to know the absolute truth. So Krishna is a super soul. He'll direct you somehow or other to meet a devotee or to get a book, to make that connection. So within our heart, the Supreme Lord as a super soul is supplying everyone their intelligence according to their needs and according to their desires. So as a human being, we have different desires, we have different needs. And a little tiny ant, he has desires and he has needs. So Krishna is supplying the intelligence to everyone in all species of life according to their needs and desires. And because the Supreme Lord has given us, especially in the human form of life, has given us this independence, have given us this free will, it's up to us how we use our intelligence. If we choose to use our intelligence to go deeper in life, to understand and discover the purpose and the vision and the plan of the Supreme Lord behind this wonderful creation, and how to live in harmony with that, his desire, Krishna can supply us with that intelligence. This is called real spiritual intelligence. Actually, the Srimad Bhagavatam defines intelligence. Real intelligence is when one's consciousness has expanded and one can actually see things for what they are. Which means one can stand in this world and discriminate between reality and illusion and act on the spiritual platform. This is said to be real spiritual intelligence. However, on the other hand, one may use their intelligence to become a thief or a cheater or a smuggler. There's so many intelligent people out there that are, who are stealing people's money through the internet. There's like a huge thing going on at the moment. I mean, something like every year, like $6 billion has been somehow or other taken from people by these clever scammers. I mean, this type of thing. I mean, even if you want to become a big scientist or atheist and try and prove that the Supreme Lord doesn't exist. This also requires intelligence. And this intelligence is supplied by the Supreme Lord. However, according to our Bhakti school, this is a misuse of one's intelligence which is misdirected. The point is that whatever we desire to do or accomplish in life, we're completely dependent on the direction of the Supreme Lord within our heart. So the function of intelligence, you could say, is the power of discrimination. To be able to decide the value of what we want in life, what we don't want, and whether we strive to achieve it. This is the function of intelligence. I mean, that intelligence holds the reins of the body chariot. It guides the mind, distinguishes right from wrong, moral from immoral, good from bad, truth from illusion. Just like sometimes you may do something that, maybe you shouldn't be doing, and there's something, little voice inside you that tells you, what are you doing? Like sometimes, when you sleep in for Mangalati and the alarm goes off and you think, I'm not going to go. But something inside says, no, you've got to get up. Now, if you're going to do something, that's kind of bad, like that you shouldn't be, you shouldn't be doing, this little voice inside you, it's your consciousness. Everyone's experienced it. That's the super soul. That's Krishna inside you. Telling you. So, what we learn from Bhagavad Gita, if the intelligence is not trained, if it's not purified, it will give in to the mind's demands. And we might find ourselves, you could say, suffering the consequences and get ourselves into all sorts of strife. We should know that we hear that the mind is an amazing instrument, a brilliant creation, that if it's not brought under control by the higher intelligence, and it's simply dictated to by the material energy, we might find ourselves just like thinking and acting irrationally, which can make our life so miserable. There's people there's many people today in the world, in the modern busy world. They suffer from this condition. It's a modern term. It's called dysrationalia. You probably haven't heard of this term. Dysrationalia, or the ability to think and behave rationally despite having adequate intelligence and even a higher IQ. Yes. So, as devotees, we understand this is all due to a lack of proper spiritual education and training. That people are doing all sorts of crazy things. Also, we understand thousands of lifetimes of material conditioning or programming. Even in this life, as soon as a child can hold its head up, it's just watching TV, isn't it? And then as we go through our life, we've been conditioned and programmed by the media. So many things. It's coming through the education system, the newspapers, the magazines, the movies, the music, the internet. It's like so much materialistic propaganda is just downloaded into our hard drive or our subconsciousness, which just builds up and pollutes us and covers our original pure spiritual consciousness and intelligence. Therefore, we cannot really see clearly. Our vision is kind of blurred. We can't understand, in essence, who we are and how we're being controlled by this powerful, deluding material energy. And on a global scale, we see, the whole world. I mean, despite modern man's attempt to utilize his advanced rationality and intelligence and create this perfect world or this perfect, successful social arrangement. These proud and mighty nations of the world, America and China and Russia and Australia and India, they're all staggering under mountains of social problems and economic problems and environmental problems, and just the list just goes on and on and on. So the Bhagavad Gita tells us that without superior information and spiritual guidance, or this what you call developed higher spiritual intelligence, society cannot and will not come up to a higher platform of understanding and performance. Therefore, Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita that the intelligence guiding human society must come from a source superior to man's. Therefore, we see Krishna has given us these Vedic literatures. He sends his representatives like Srila Prabhupada to guide and educate us in the science of self-realization. And of course, we hear this in the Bhagavad Gita, Evam param param bhaktam. This knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita was specifically meant for the leaders of the world so that they could implement its teachings and directions in organizing society in such a way that people are progressively purifying their existence, becoming free from material contamination, and ultimately going back to Godhead at the end of their lives. We read about that in the Vedic literatures, about these ancient civilizations of people who just were living this pure spiritual and godly life. And they were so happy, both materially and spiritually. Even in India today, people say, with all the problems in India, the corruption and the diseases and all these things, people are saying, if only we had the kingdom of Ram here today, things would be so much better. Because they read about that in the Ramayana, about what it was like when Lord Ram was the king of the world, and everything was just so perfect and everyone was so happy. So in our Bhakti tradition also describes 4 types of intelligence. The first class, and Prabhupada used the example of the fire, like first class intelligence. Someone tells you that fire burns. So first class intelligence says you don't put your hand in the fire because you know you're going to get burned. Second class intelligence, you got to put your hand in the fire to test it. You're not fully convinced. You get burned. So I'm not going to put my hand in the fire again. Second class intelligence. Third class intelligence is you put your hand in the fire, you get burnt. But then later on you put your hand in the fire again and you get burnt again, and you keep doing it. This is like the story of the history of the world. There's a saying, history repeats itself. That mankind, they just keep making the same mistakes time after time. So therefore we may conclude that that a first-class intelligent person, hears this Vedic knowledge and realizes that ultimately, who can be more intelligent than the Supreme Lord himself, who's created all of us, who's created this world? Better I take his advice and take up this process of Krishna consciousness so I can improve my life. So my life will be more meaningful and my destiny will be more beautiful. Yes. And then there's a 4th type of intelligence, which is interesting. It's a state above and beyond the other 3 types, which we find within us when we tune our intelligence to the Supreme Lord within, the Supersoul. So this is a very advanced stage, as we see that. The Acharyas, Krishna's directly guiding them from within their heart, telling them so many things. It's but also we see, Krishna also in different ways. We see Mahatma talks about this in his seminars about how we have to try and listen to the super soul, the intelligence that Krishna's trying to give us from within our hearts. We should listen. Sometimes you do things, and then you think, I should have. Something was telling me I should have done something different, but I didn't. I did it differently. I should have listened to this Krishna within the heart, somehow or other. So this is a very advanced platform, ultimately, to just be directly guided from the Lord within. Therefore, we take guidance from the bona fide spiritual master. He's said to be an external manifestation of the supersoul of the Lord within our heart. So we can take his instruction, take his guidance, and in this way, we can get good direction in our life. But also we should try and listen to the Lord when he's trying to give us some instruction within our hearts. Yes. So in this verse, it's talking about this, how these, the frog in a well philosophy, Prabhupada talks about that. The frog, he lives in this little tiny well, and someone tells him about the great Pacific Ocean. And he's trying to figure out, his only experience is this tiny little well. So then he says, how big is it? And he puffs himself up, like the frogs, they puff themselves up, Is it this big? No, it's way bigger than that. Is it this big? Way bigger than that. And he finally, he keeps puffing himself up and he bursts. So he said, Prabhupada used an example, just like these, the scientists and the philosophers, they're trying to understand the unlimited Supreme Lord with their tiny little brains, their tiny little intelligence, their tiny little perspective of what's going on in this world. It's amazing. I mean, when we look at this universe, we see incredible intelligent design, so much fine-tuning, so much so that life can exist here in this planet. If conditions were just a little different, life could not possibly exist. This strongly suggests that someone arranged things in a certain way so everything works really nicely. I talked about this before, that even the human body itself acts as a finely tuned machine with trillions of atoms all moving in symbiotic position. And it's been estimated that there may be as many as 200 trillion molecules in a single cell. Imagine that, all executing thousands of coordinated reactions with precise timing. So we may conclude, if there is intelligent design, there must be a designer. There must be an intelligence or an intelligent being behind this fine-tuning. Yes. That makes everything work so perfectly and systematically. It couldn't have happened just by chance, could it? But the scientists, they put forth all these theories that there is no creator. There's no higher intelligence. They talk about the big exploding chunk theory. There was a chunk floating in space, and then it exploded. And then all the particles fell out in such a way that we have this perfect universe. Prabhupada said, well, first question we ask is, where did the chunk come from? Then they have the molecular evolutionary theories where chemicals lead to complex molecules and finally life. And they give the example, just like saying that somehow or other chemicals evolved into little amoebas, and then the amoebas gradually developed in the ocean, And then they crawled out of the ocean, they developed legs, they climbed trees, they developed the color TVs. It's a kind of an evolutionary theory. Of course, they say it's not clear if you ask them. They say that there's missing links. Actually, the one Prabhu was lecturing to one scientist who was saying there is no life, we're just chemicals. It's just chemical. Chemical reactions within the body creates life. Prabhupada said, well, if I give you the chemicals, can you create life? And the scientist said, well, I don't think I can. So the more we discover and think about the details of this physical world, the more we will realize that everything is purposely designed. Nothing happens by chance. Yes. There's a supreme intelligence behind this ordered universe. And actually, it is said, by some of we have a scientific branch of our movement called the Bhaktivedanta Institute. And they have written quite a few books. I mean, I can't understand so much of it because it's very high scientific jargon. But I can understand some of the basic things. And the one thing they explain is that over the last 50 years, the discoveries of science have pointed strongly to something beyond this universe as the ultimate cause. Whether it's some higher intelligence or some higher force, spiritual force, they're not sure, whether there is a God or what it is. But the reason why people have started to think like this, even scientists, is because in reality, no one really knows why this universe started, why it's finely tuned. Nobody knows how life started or how the structure of the first cell started. So, yes, so they've concluded all these things point strongly to some element beyond nature. Be it a supreme creator or some unknown spiritual force. And this is what's impelled a lot of philosophers and scientists to look for a more philosophical understanding about this universe. Really, just because they're realizing there's no explanations can be found to explain this physical world. It's just this big confusion. Yes. So we need to, we also in our Bhaktivedanta Institute, they're also circulating information amongst scientific fields and different departments, trying to educate people with this Vedic knowledge. Because ultimately, from our Krishna conscious perspective, there's a realm of knowledge, a higher wisdom beyond scientific knowledge and rationality. But we also understand that this knowledge, it's inconceivable and mystical. It can't be understood simply by philosophical speculation or philosophy or through some kind of scholarship or material intelligence. You can't just pick up the book and understand it. The Vedas explain that only by following the process given by the bona fide spiritual master can one receive direct enlightenment or realization within the heart. So there's a process. One has to purify one's consciousness, purify the intelligence. So if we want to understand something of the unlimited, we need to be enlightened by the unlimited Supreme Lord, or those connected to the unlimited Supreme Lord, like the Vaishnavacharyas. So they can help guide us and educate us. And yes, it's just an amazing phenomenon this Vedic knowledge. It's said that there's like 120,000 books go to make up this Vedic knowledge. It's like a whole library of books, actually. But it's very fortunate, we can just go to the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam and we get the very essence of that knowledge, which is very convenient. I mean, no one's got time to read a whole library of books. I'll just finish there. Does anyone have any questions I'd like to ask? Would like to add anything?
Thanks for the class, very good. I just wanted to ask, you kind of mentioned how listening to the super soul in the heart, and I think you kind of mentioned it at the end about the purification process that we go through. But is there anything else that you can say that we can sort of develop the ears to hear Krishna in the heart?
Any what, sorry?
Is there anything else that you can say about developing the ears to be able to hear Krishna in the heart?
All right. Yeah, like I said, ultimately we just take instructions from the spiritual master, who's the external manifestation of the spiritual master, of the super soul. But yes, I think we just have to become. It's like Mahatma Prabhu, he tells that before you become Krishna conscious, you have to become conscious. You have to start really, thinking about, allowing it. Because generally, sometimes, in general day-to-day life, we become a little bit complacent. We're just thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about, our health or what we're going to do today or what we're going to eat tonight or this and that. And, we need to really connect with Krishna on a deeper level. We see this, the Vaishnavacharyas are teaching that, that we have to try and connect to Krishna on a deeper level. And this comes through chanting really, for chanting our rounds very consciously, very attentively, really hearing the mantra it's like a prayer. So we went to that japa workshop. It's like a deep prayer. Krishna, I'm here in the material world. I'm struggling with the three modes of material nature, thousands of times of conditioning. I need help. I need guidance. I need support. You got to really connect to Krishna on that deeper level, even through your japa. We got to reading these, like they're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's so powerful. If you're ever feeling a bit, lost, just sit down and just start reading. Just read aloud if you can. It's even more effective. Just read this Bhagavatam for 1 hour. And immediately you just feel transformed. It's incredible. It's powerful. Have you had that experience? You got to really, because this knowledge is non-different to Krishna, And so, even in our day-to-day work, everything we do in Bhakti Yoga is ultimately meant to help us remember Krishna, and even when we're doing our service, it said we should be conscious of Krishna, that I'm doing this to try and please Krishna. It's not just, it's a kind of a mood that we're trying to develop, to always remember Krishna and never forget him, whether it's reading, chanting, doing service, even eating prasadam. They say that even when you're eating prasadam, you should be meditating that this is Mahaprasadam, this has been offered to Krishna. And then you just get the benefit of eating prasadam. But it is said, I can't verify it, but it was said in one lecture I heard that if you're just thinking, this is just food, I just got to get it in there and satisfy my hunger, and then you're not getting the same benefit as if you're thinking, this is Krishna prasadam, this is offered to Krishna, this is sanctified food, and you're eating in that mood. So it's like, you got to really connect to Krishna on a deeper level. I know that Kadamba Swami was saying that in his final days, that one problem that devotees have is that they haven't developed that deeper connection with Krishna. And also, you can, just by going and visiting the holy dhams and living in that can also help you to connect to Krishna on a deeper level. And of course, here you're reading about Krishna's pastimes, so many amazing pastimes there. And you can be thinking of those pastimes even throughout the day. It's said that just by remembering Krishna's pastime in Vrindavan, you've transported to Vrindavan, to Goloka Vrindavan, just by remembering Krishna's pastimes. So yes, it's Krishna's always there, and we just have to really kind of connect with him, on that deeper level. Then we can really feel his presence in our life more and more, in our everyday activities. Is that okay? Jai Shri Prabhupada ki, Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi.